It's D-U-E-U till I see you by this point. You're reading my mind. It's time for football. We about to keep this thing moving. I'm about it, you're with it, let's do it. We gon' make this thing official, you heard me? If you're the best, then let's prove it. The goal is set to have a team become a unit, man. We about to keep this thing moving. I'm about it, you're with it, let's do it. We gon' make this thing official, you heard me? If you're the best, then let's prove it. The goal is set to have a team become a unit, yeah.
Welcome to Football Game Plan's NFL All-32 show. I am Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook, and thank you guys for joining us tonight on a very good episode as we enter Week 15 of the NFL season. I feel like the season's just flying by, and one thing that's unique about this NFL season, I said this last Sunday, but first I get into that, be sure to follow me on all of my social media accounts, Twitter at FBall Game Plan, Instagram is all one word, Football Game Plan, and on YouTube at youtube.com/Football Game Plan. That's where you can find all of our great football content. And up right now on YouTube, we just kicked off draft season by going to the FCS Bowl, the 2021 FCS Bowl. So right now on our YouTube channel, we are already scouting the 2022 NFL Draft with our footage and our clips from the practices down in Daytona Beach at the FCS Bowl. So you can go check that out, like I said, at youtube.com/Football Game Plan. But back to what I was talking about. It's fascinating right now to see where we are in the NFL. I tweeted this out last Sunday and I said, man, it feels like everyone in the league, or 95% of teams in the league right now, are playing 7-6 football, meaning their record is 7-6. I feel like everybody is about 500 or just a little bit above 500 right now in the season, and that's a good thing. I'm all for parity. It makes for every week to be unpredictable, like we've seen all throughout the season. And it makes for a fun game. When we have parity, it's great. Yes, there are going to be teams, those 5% that I was talking about, that are a little bit above everyone else right now. But for the most part, even those teams at the top, how many times this year we've seen Tampa Bay play sort of somewhat in the middle in terms of record, you know? So it's not like there has been one dominant football team. We're starting to see now the Kansas City Chiefs, who we thought were dead in the first quarter of the season, start to make a charge up the standings and now look like they could position themselves to be the #1 seed in the AFC. So let's start there, honestly, because that's a great segue. I don't want to lose that segue as Kansas City travels to Los Angeles tonight to take on the Chargers, and we'll start there. And here's the thing. We talked about this last week in terms of the Chiefs. You look at a team that has gotten better every week defensively, and as their defense is getting better, their offense is starting to get to where we normally see it, and both sides of the ball are meeting each other in the middle, which means Kansas City is playing its best football right now, and more in particular on offense, the run game is starting to pop. We're starting to see them rip off long runs, sustain some drives with their run game, beat teams into submission or assault games away with their run game. And their defense is able to get after the quarterback. They're stopping the run. They're turning the ball over. And they get a big boost back this week in L'Jarius Sneed, who missed last week dealing with a family issue off the field. And prayers and thoughts go out to his family. So right now, the Chargers are facing a red-hot Kansas City Chiefs team going into L.A. to take them on in a battle for AFC West supremacy. And right now, that AFC West has looked competitive because you got the Chargers, you have the Chiefs, and you also have the Broncos. The Raiders are starting to slide. They started hot, and they're starting to slide. But for Kansas City, it's going to be about coming in and making sure they take advantage of that newfound pressure that they're able to get on a quarterback and get Justin Herbert off the spot. If they're able to get Herbert off the spot and force him to consistently make off-platform throws, I think that's a win for the Chiefs defense. That's the biggest key for me in this ball game. And offensively, knowing the Chiefs are now able to run the football rather well, and knowing the Chargers have issues in stopping the run, I think that's where the matchup starts. So they're going to have to run the football rather well, take their time going down the field. We know the Chargers are a legit quick strike offense. They can work touchdown to check down just like the Chiefs used to be in their heyday with Justin Herbert. So run the football, take time off the clock, get after Herbert, force him off the spot. I think that's how they could have some success. Now you look at the Chargers in this ball game. For me, it's about striking while the iron is hot. We know Herbert can make things happen out there on the field. We saw that last weekend with a fantastic throw against the New York Giants where he went deep down the field while getting hit. So when you're able to do those things as a quarterback, you're what people like to call a special talent. And I think when you have that ability, along with what they possess on the perimeter and those tall targets that are able to stretch the field vertically, don't be afraid to go deep down the field and take your shots. You're going to have to play with some cojones, so to speak, against the Kansas City Chiefs defense. And as much as they're able to get pressure, now that they're able to get pressure, you still will have your opportunities to make things happen deep down the field. So don't be shy about going deep and attacking that secondary and using your passing game as a supplement to your run game. So you may see them get guys like their running back involved in the passing game, Austin Eckler. You may see them try to utilize that short passing game as another supplement to the run game because the Chiefs are starting to show some tightness against the run. So I think their passing game will be the biggest key here. I also feel like when you have a quarterback like Justin Herbert that's a good athlete, don't be afraid to utilize him as a +1 once you get inside the red zone. But outside of the red zone, just allow him to naturally break contain and get out there and make things happen with his legs. Don't call design runs until you get inside the red zone. Defensively, it's about playing plaster defense on the back end. It's easier said than done. Easier for me to sit here and say, yeah, all you got to do is just, stay with the receivers for more than 4 seconds. Yeah, that's fine and dandy. That's easy to say, but it's hard to do. But that's the mission that'll have to happen because we know Patrick Mahomes does a great job of buying time, and we know he has the arm strength to really work touchdown to check down the passing game, just like Herbert does. But Mahomes is able to make those throws off platform more accurately than Justin Herbert. So it's about the secondary playing plaster coverage. But up front, stopping a run literally is about heart, want to, and alignment. If you're in where you're supposed to be and you want to stop the run, you're going to stop the run. You can't allow yourself to be pushed against your will consistently in the run defense department. And if the Chargers decide to stop the run, best believe they will own up and stop the run. Now, again, the Chiefs would like to throw the football. They don't necessarily want to run the football. So you may have your best run defense output in this ball game considering the opponent, but you can't allow them to say, hey, we can run the football. We're going to try to, quote unquote, establish a run against the Chargers because that could be a losing proposition. So those are some of the keys. And I think the biggest X factor to me for the Chargers would be about making the plays that are there to be made. Kansas City is like one of those teams where you used to think about the Bulls with Michael Jordan or the Braves when they had that pitching machine, that trio of pitchers with Maddox, Smoltz, and I forgot the other guy, Glavine. When they had those guys throwing, that smoke down the mound. Or when you had the 49ers in the 80s and early 90s. When you have an opportunity to put points up on the board, you have to. When you have opportunities to get a stop, you have to. So don't get caught up in saying, hey, we have to outscore the Chiefs. Yeah, you do. But if you have a chance to get 3 and it's 4th and 5, kick the field goal. Don't try to be a hero. Do what you have to do to stay in the fight, stay in the game, and make the plays that are there to be made. And if that happens, then you find yourself winning these games. The Chargers have more than enough firepower to get that done, in my opinion, and that's going to have to happen in this game if they want to win. However, I do see Kansas City pulling away victorious in this one. This will be another one of these entertaining primetime games that we have seen all throughout the season. I like the Chiefs to go on the road, get the win, and it wouldn't surprise me to see this game creep into overtime. But I do like Kansas City because, again, they're playing much better defense. They're playing very good complementary offense, so their run game is opening things up when their passing game starts to sputter and vice versa. So we're starting to see Clyde Edwards-Helaire start to show that burst and power, breaking tackles and really ripping off, chunk plays on the ground, and Williams as well. So I like where the Kansas City Chiefs are right now. They're ascending on both sides of the ball. The Chargers will be a formidable opponent, but I am going to take Kansas City to get the win over Los Angeles tonight on Thursday Night Football as we kick off week number 15. So we'll take a break, step aside, and be back with more Football Game Plan's NFL All-32 show here on the Game Plus Network. Welcome back to Football Game Plan's NFL All-32 show here on the Game Plus Network. Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Let's get back into some NFL Week 15 previews, and man, outside of it being week 15 and everyone is kind of playing, 500 football, they now have to deal with COVID. COVID is running rampant through the NFL here in week 15. So we may see some games that may not have some star players like this one with the Raiders and the Browns. We may not see Baker Mayfield. We may not see Kevin Stefanski, the head football coach. Both had been diagnosed with COVID. Now, granted, they're vaccinated, so can they turn it around in time to get out there on the field? We shall see. But the Raiders come in playing maybe a Case Keenum and, a team without their head coach that plays a big role in what happens out there on game day. So this may be a spot where the Browns could be on upset alert. But if you're the Raiders, you have to find a way to salvage the season. It looked as though they found their second win right after Gruden was fired, and then they started to go into a tailspin. And the Browns are coming off a very good win, albeit a last-second win against the Baltimore Ravens, but they found a way to get it done. And yes, Baker Mayfield didn't play his best, but he played well enough to where they outgunned the Baltimore Ravens. Defensively, I think the Browns will be game enough to slow down Derek Carr. And again, run game, defense, doesn't matter who's the quarterback here, in my opinion. So I do like the Browns in that regard, and I'm taking them to knock off the Raiders in this matchup. New England traveling to Indianapolis to take on the Colts. So this is going to be a fascinating game because I said it before and I'll say it again. I still feel this way. The Colts, to me, are the best team in the AFC South. And this is essentially a playoff game because they're going to have to take on teams like New England if they get to the postseason. The Patriots are finding ways to win. Their defense is good. The run game is excellent. Mac Jones isn't making terrible mistakes as a rookie. He's playing complementary football. He's protecting the football for the most part. So I think because of how well they're playing on both sides of the ball in a complementary way, it's going to make things tough for Indianapolis. But Indianapolis, we know, can run the football. Their defense has gotten better, I believe. And I think their defense will present some challenges for Mac Jones in this ball game. This will be about whether or not Carson Wentz can connect on those opportunities deep down the field. Can he protect the football? If he can, I think they have pound for pound more talent on offense. So I'm taking the Colts to go ahead and get this win against New England, just making things once again very interesting and tight in that AFC South. Dallas travels to the Giants to take on Big Blue. And here's the thing about Dallas. They got the win against Washington. Dak didn't play his best game, but the defense stepped up and helped Dak out, helped the offense out. And I think that's huge because you want to be playing good complementary football moving forward. That's going to be the theme here in this week's episode, complementary football. Dallas does that now. You saw their defense just take over that game against Washington, and they're going to have the same opportunity here against Mike Glennon in that Giants offense. With Glennon back there, he's not the most mobile guy. He's not Daniel Jones, so you don't have to worry about him getting outside the pocket. He's also a guy that puts the ball in harm's way, a la Daniel Jones. So this defense could have themselves back-to-back weeks of dominant play. I think the Giants defense is better than what people may think the team is. This is a defense that can collapse the pocket. They definitely can turn the ball over. They have some athleticism at the second level. They're being put in bad situations by an offense that can't score the ball, can't sustain drives, and that's why we see the record is what it is for Big Blue. However, in this game, they have an opportunity to take advantage of what I think is a Cowboys defense that tends to give up some big plays, but I don't think they have the quarterback, unfortunately, to make that happen. So I do like Dallas to get the win and moving on to continue to strengthen and expand that lead in the NFC East. The Giants just can't wait to get healthy and wait for the season to get over with to try to make some changes within the roster. But again, that defense is being put in a bad spot here because their offense really doesn't help them out at all in this game. Houston taking on Jacksonville. What more can you say about both teams, to be honest? They're struggling offensively. They're both starting rookie quarterbacks. Both are turnover-prone, mistake-prone quarterbacks. So this game, to me, will be ugly, and I think it'll come down to defense. And when you're talking about defense, you're talking about a Jacksonville Jaguars defense that's actually playing some solid football. I think Jacksonville, underratedly, is growing in the right direction defensively. And because of that, I like them to knock out the Houston Texans. This one will be a low-scoring game, competitive, more of a developmental game in terms of what you want to see from your young guys. I think we'll see some growth within these players. Let's see if Trevor Lawrence can put together a really good game here and show some positive growth, because last week was just brutal for the young quarterback out of Clemson. Tennessee taking on Pittsburgh. Interesting game here. Pittsburgh is 6-1, and we know Tennessee is 8-4. And so we want to see whether or not Tennessee is for real. Can they expand that lead in the AFC South, or can Pittsburgh make that run up the standings and toward the playoffs and try to get that winning record? They're 2 wins away from ensuring that Mike Tomlin doesn't have his first losing season. We'll see how motivated they are and how well they can take care of business against a team in Tennessee that's still playing its game. They're still finding ways to keep the run game kind of going. Despite not having Derrick Henry, I like how productive they've been in that regard. Defensively, I like what I'm seeing from that secondary. They are turning the ball over. Kevin Byers is a really good player. We know up front, Jeffrey Simmons is wrecking havoc to opposing offenses up front. So as long as they're able to continue to do this thing similarly to what they were able to do before Derrick Henry went out with an injury, I think that's going to be huge. So Tennessee in this spot is coming in and playing really well. Pittsburgh, they turned it on late in the game. Had they turned that on earlier, maybe they beat the Minnesota Vikings. So I just don't know which Steelers team will show up. But I'm going to take Tennessee here to get the win. I think the Titans will do a good job of avoiding the upset out there in Pittsburgh. And lastly, before we step aside for another break, the Jets are taking on Miami. They're traveling down to South Florida. Miami, once again, is finding themselves right there in the midst of a playoff run with their quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa, and another young quarterback on the other side, and Zach Wilson. He had a good game 2 weeks ago, and last week against New Orleans was just bad. He has to flatline his game. Here's what I tweeted out during the game, and it was just an observation that once he starts to throw with more touch, I think he'll complete a lot more passes. Right now, I feel like he's out there trying to showcase the arm strength. Yes, we know you have a great arm. Everything doesn't have to be a 95-mile-an-hour fastball. You can take some heat off those passes and allow those guys to be able to catch and run, get things done after the catch, and you're able to complete a lot more passes. The fact that he's thrown with a lot more velocity and a lot more power on those throws, it throws off his placement, and which is why we're seeing passes sail high or passes go wide. Take some of the steam off those passes and you'll complete some a little bit more. And I think because of the offense's ineffectiveness, it put a improving defense over the last couple of weeks in a bad situation where they couldn't stop the run. They got gas at the end, and we saw what happened with that situation. But all that being said, Miami presents a really good defense like New Orleans did. And on offense, even though people clown Tua about his short, intermediate passing, and that's all he completes, his short passes to the left or short passes over the middle of the field, it's keeping the offense on the field, it's chewing up clock, and they're maximizing some opportunities inside the red zone. And with all of that being said, they're playing winning football, and I think they play winning football here and beat the Jets. So we'll step aside for one more break and be back with more football game plans, NFL All-32, here on the Game Plus Network. Welcome back to Football Game Plans NFL All-32 show. Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Appreciate you guys sticking with us here tonight on Game Plus Network as we go through NFL Week number 15. And we'll pick right back up in the NFC East, where the Philadelphia Eagles travel to take on play host to the Washington football team. Now, we spoke earlier about a team dealing with COVID issues, and that's Washington. There's no Montez Sweat, who tested positive for COVID, and because he's unvaccinated, that puts a lot of players on that team in jeopardy. So the Eagles will be facing a very beat up or depleted Washington roster, and this is a must-win game for both teams because both are entering this matchup 6-7 on the year. And right now, Washington holds that 7th playoff spot with the Eagles right there at 6-7. So if the Eagles win, they get that 7th spot in the playoffs. So that's why it was huge for Montez Sweat to be vaccinated, to where he can probably get back on the field into, and not be subject to this protocol, which will probably end up costing him 2 games instead of this 1. But it will end up costing his team much more. Eagles are coming off of a bye week, so they're coming in well rested, ready to go. Jalen Hurts should be ready to go at quarterback after missing last game with the ankle injury. And again, Minshew did a good job filling in. They got the win versus the Jets going into the bye week. Now they come out facing a depleted Washington roster. and they're playing some of their best ball defensively. I love the Eagles in this game. I know people are worried about it being a so-called trap game, but to be completely honest, Washington's offense has been turnover prone. Defensively, they're depleted on that side of the football. There's no Chase Young because of injury, but now you don't have Montez Sweat because of COVID, and some other guys on that defense. Jonathan Allen may not play as well because of COVID. So I love the Eagles here to get the win and take over that 7th spot in the NFC playoffs, getting their 7th win of the season. Should be fun times down there at Lincoln Financial this Sunday as they take on Washington. Arizona travels out to Detroit to take on the Lions, and this is a fascinating game because we just saw the Cardinals lay an egg in primetime last weekend against the Rams, and now they have to come back and face a team that's 11-1 on the season in the Detroit Lions. And this is the type of game that you don't want to come in staggering, thinking that you're going to overlook and get into next week or still be hungover from last week's loss. So they can't let last week's loss against the Rams become this week's loss against the Lions. I don't think that'll happen, man. The Cardinals, even without DeAndre Hopkins, have more than enough offensive firepower. I still love the defense of Arizona, and I think because of their defense's ability to really pressure, turn the ball over, all those things that we like to talk about, I like them here in the spot against the Lions to get the win. Carolina travels to Buffalo to take on the Bills, and if you're thinking about putting the fork in the Bills and saying that they're done based off their record, they're 7-6. They've lost a couple of games in a row. The Bills showed a lot of fight, a lot of grit in that game against Tampa Bay. I thought they were actually going to pull it off and come back and win, but they showed you a lot about this Bills football team, and they're facing a scrappy team in Carolina whose back is up against the wall, so we should see the best of both teams come out swinging. Matt Rule said that he's going to play both P.J. Walker and Cam Newton, and if we're being completely and 100% honest, when he did that in the first game Cam came back against the Cardinals, I thought that was the best possible scenario. You play both quarterbacks. Right now, Cam Newton still isn't what he once was. We understand that. But in spurts, I think he could be very effective. And playing him along with P.J. Walker definitely gives them a better chance to try to win this game. But I think Buffalo right now is a much better football team. I like the Bills to get the job done. Cincinnati and Denver playing what essentially is a playoff elimination game. Both teams are 7-6. Denver is still within striking distance of the AFC West. The Bengals, I thought, was going to come back and beat San Francisco. They had them beat as well. If Jesse Bates catches that interception, game is over. They beat San Francisco. They have the #1 spot in the AFC North. Well, he didn't make the interception. San Francisco continues to drive down, kicks the game-winning points, or gets the game-winning score in OT. So we saw how that plays out. So now you're in a situation where you have to win. You're fighting for playoff positioning or a playoff spot with Denver, who's also in the mix. And so we should see a fascinating competitive game between both teams. This will come down to which team can make the least mistakes. Both seem to be a little bit turnover prone or mistake prone, put it that way. But right now, to be completely honest, if we're talking about pound for pound, the better team, I think the better team is Cincinnati, especially on paper. They have to believe they are the better team and start playing consistent football from start to finish. But the more efficient team has been the Denver Broncos. Teddy Bridgewater just leads scoring drives. He keeps the offense on the field and does a great job in managing the situation. So I can see this one coming down to the last possession. But I'm going to go with Cincinnati here. I'm going to take talent over efficiency. I think the Bengals will get the job done on the road out there in Mile High City and knock off the Broncos. And lastly, Chicago and Minnesota. The Bears are dealing with some COVID issues. They take on Minnesota. Minnesota's coming off that very strong win against Pittsburgh last weekend in primetime. And we'll see if there's improvement this week from Justin Fields. Again, the only rookie quarterback right now that's playing decent ball is Mac Jones. And that's because he's not being asked to do a lot. But everyone else, Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, they haven't looked good on a consistent basis. They've had flashes. They haven't played well. So you hope that he can get on the right track in this one against Minnesota. It's going to be tough because Minnesota's playing really solid football. I do like them to get the win here against the Bears. So that's a wrap for Week 15. That's it for this week's episode of Football Game Plan's NFL All-32 show. here on the Game Plus Network. Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at FBallGamePlan. Instagram is Football Game Plan, all one word. YouTube.com/Football Game Plan. And we will see you guys next week in week number 16, Christmas football next weekend for the NFL.
Tell I see you by this point, you're reading my mind. It's time for football. We about to keep this thing moving. I'm about it, you're with it, let's do it. We gon' make this thing official, you heard me? If you're the best, then let's prove it. The goal is set to have a team become a unit, man. We about to keep this thing moving. I'm about it, you're with it, let's do it. We gon' make this thing official, you heard me? If you're the best, then let's prove it. The goal is set to have a team become a unit, yeah.